You know, I'm from Milwaukee and grew up the granddaughter of a bus driver. Later on, my family moved to rural Waukesha County, much like this, drop-dead gorgeous. That's where I learned how to hunt and fish, love the outdoors, shared Wisconsin value. And so no surprise when I became of age, as I talked on campus this noon, I wanted to change the world. And so I went to law school in order to protect our environment. Started arguing cases in the state Supreme Court 3 months out of law school, taking on big and powerful institutions and winning. And spent the next 20 years helping citizens all around the state. 12 years of those as your public intervener. That was the environmental watchdog for you. And you remember I won so many cases that Governor Thompson eliminated the public intervener office. Maureen McKinney, one of your fabulous local leaders here, was on my advisory committee to the public intervener office. And so then citizens in Dane County said, Falk, you got to run for county executive. Given all the lakes and farm in that state, there are big development pressures to 60,000 people for coming a decade. But the other reason I ran was to help move families up the economic ladder. Too many kids that I knew and loved didn't have the opportunities my son had, and I wanted to make a difference in their lives. And so I was the first woman elected, longest serving, re-elected more times than anyone before me had ever been in that job. And 14 years later, I can tell you I have balanced the budget far many times than Scott Walker. I have done it, unlike him, with a no structural deficit and balancing a budget. I know Representative Doyle here would have liked to have seen a budget that did the same, and he would do the same. And in doing that, I've worked to bring people together to solve problems. And some of those ways I learned from you here in the class. You were the county way ahead of the curve, thanks to leaders like Steve and Kara and Vicki, who were reforming your criminal justice system to be smarter on crime. I took some of your ideas. I did that in Dane County. I brought environmentalists and builders together so that instead of fighting each other, we have the first, best, or only environmental protections in the state by bringing people together and working together. And I created problems that moved families up the economic ladder who had the most difficult challenges in their lives. That's what I love doing, and that's why I want to be your governor. So I'm ready to go day one. I don't need training on the job, and we're going to need a governor ready to go day one. But the second thing I think all these undecided sliver in the middle are looking for, in addition to competence, is honesty, openness, transparency. We're in this recall, the third in the history of our nation, because we had a governor who didn't tell us what he was going to do. This far-right extreme agenda that maybe what the National Republican Tea Party folks are hoisting on the nation, and it isn't how he ran in his Wisconsin values. And so from the very beginning of his surprises with his agenda, I have tried to answer questions openly, honestly, and transparently about what I will do, how I'll restore collective bargaining, and here's how you do it. There is only one way, and that's through a budget bill, because it's the only bill that has to pass every 2 years. And how we will undo the harms he has done throughout the year, but just as recently as last week. So while I was here today, we had a press conference at UW La Crosse, I called on the governor to veto 2 of the bills that were passed at the end of last week. I mean, Steve was there working literally all night long. But 2 of the things he fought against last week were bills that passed the legislature over his objection, like we no longer have the Healthy Youth Act, which required age-appropriate sex education in schools. I'm looking at a lot of moms, dads, and grandparents, like me, right, Mom? Like Mom. I sure want my children to have appropriate, age-appropriate sex education in the classroom, because if not, we know where they learn, and it isn't good. Or the bill that was passed last week over Steve and Jen's and Jill's objections was, it is no longer do we women have the ability to sue if we are discriminated against on pay in the workplace. So it's okay for him to make $1, it's okay for her to make 81 cents, and she can't do anything about it for the same job. It's now legal to do that. Well, I called on Governor Walker today to veto those 2 bills.